Every Craigslist deal seems normal, until it isn't. You think you're just looking for a good price, maybe a quick way to get rid of old furniture or pick up a used phone. But sometimes, a harmless Craigslist post can slide into real danger, uncovering crimes or exposing stalkers. The line between convenience and risk gets blurry fast. These aren't just stories about bad luck. They're about the hidden risks behind every online transaction, the kind you don't see until you're already in too deep. We're counting down 10 Craigslist deals that almost cost people far more than money. Have you ever paused before clicking reply? Think twice now. You don't ever plan to hold surgical scissors for a stranger in their kitchen. The first Craigslist reply I ever sent was about as desperate as you'd expect. I was broke in nursing school, so I replied. The ad just said, medical assistant needed for a private procedure, $500 cash. No insurance, no paperwork, just a promise of fast money. I thought it was a scam, maybe some bot looking for people to rip off, or a weird pyramid scheme. But the idea of $500 in my pocket made it hard to ignore. I stared at the post for a long time before I typed, "Can you give me details?" William replied almost right away. His message was polite, formal, and he sounded like someone who had written this kind of thing before. He said he had a rare infection in his toe, and doctors had only made things worse. He couldn't risk going back to a hospital. He wanted to do the procedure at home, but needed someone with a bit of training, just to keep things sterile, hand over tools, and make sure he didn't bleed too much. He signed off as Dr. William R. Campbell, MD, and offered to meet that night. I should have said no, but $500 felt like the only way I'd make rent that month. When I got to his apartment, it was small, clean, and quiet. He led me to his kitchen turned OR, but nothing prepared me for what I actually saw on that tray. The kitchen table was covered with sterile gauze, surgical scissors, tape, a sealed tray of instruments, bottles of antibiotics with pharmacy labels, and a driver's license next to a laminated medical license. I checked the name. Dr. William R. Campbell. He was older, maybe late 50s, and walked with a limp. He looked like someone who knew what he was doing. The whole setup was convincing. Anatomy charts on the wall, medical textbooks stacked on the counter, even framed diplomas. It felt like a hospital, if you squinted. I kept thinking it had to be a prank or some kind of test. But the way he talked about his toe, the pain, the way he dreamed about just cutting it off, made it clear he was serious. He handed me gloves and a mask. He spoke softly, like we were in a real hospital. When he asked for the scissors, my hand shook. I tried to hide it. He didn't flinch, he just focused, like he was trimming a hangnail. The toe came off, dropped onto a tray, and he wrapped the stump himself. Then he handed me an envelope. I didn't count it, just put it in my bag. Later I saw it was $500, plus another $100 for professionalism, as he put it. He cleaned up, handed me a typed sheet of post-op instructions, and that was it. Afterward, he told me he had PTSD from something that happened in a hospital years ago. He didn't go into detail, just said the smell of hospital soap and the lights made him panic. I left with $600 and a feeling I couldn't shake. I thought I'd feel lucky, but instead, I felt like I'd crossed a line I didn't even know was there. It taught me how fast normal trust can turn insane. You go in thinking you know what's safe, and you come out realizing you never really did. And that's the thing about Craigslist. You never know what's hiding behind the next reply. Some people go looking for friendship online, thinking it's harmless. But sometimes, what you find is a lot harder to walk away from. I never expected a strictly platonic Craigslist ad to change how I felt about walking down my own street. I just wanted someone to get coffee with, maybe wander a few blocks, talk about books, nothing complicated. Brandon answered my ad. His messages were normal, proper spelling, dry jokes about city traffic, even a suggestion to check out a new bookstore. I agreed to meet, thinking daylight in a public place made everything safe. We met at a coffee shop and walked around the neighborhood, stopping wherever we felt like. Brandon was quiet, a little shy, and let me pick the bookstore. He waited in line while I browsed the shelves. It all felt easy, like maybe I'd finally found someone who just wanted to hang out. After a few meetups, he suggested dinner. I said yes without thinking twice. I never thought the nice guy would turn those polite lines into surveillance. That's when things shifted. Brandon started showing up outside my work, leaning against the wall like he just happened to be there. At first, I told myself it was a big city and maybe he had errands nearby. Then he started texting me about places I'd been, food trucks I stopped at, shops I browsed after work. He'd mentioned the color of my coat or how my hair looked after the rain. I hadn't told him about any of that. My stomach dropped every time my phone buzzed. One night I got a Facebook message from a woman I didn't know. The profile photo was a tired woman with a coffee cup. She asked, "Are you seeing Brandon last name?" I hesitated but answered yes. Her reply came fast. "Be careful." He stalked me. He broke a restraining order, showed up at my apartment, put tracking software on my phone. She told me about the restraining order he'd violated and how he'd somehow always known where she was. That was the moment I stopped sleeping. Brandon's messages got stranger. Then I found that envelope. What was inside erased any doubt about danger. It was wedged into my door, thick and heavy. Inside was a single letter. It listed everything I'd done that day. What time I left, which way I walked the dog, what shirt I wore. The letter ended with, "You have no idea how much I notice." I gathered every text, the letter, and the screenshots from Facebook. I went to the police. They gave me a restraining order right away. I changed my phone number, but Brandon still found me. He was waiting in my work's parking garage one night, photos of me scattered on his passenger seat. That was it. I moved to a new city. New number, new job, new everything. Now, I don't pretend I can always tell who's harmless and who's waiting for a chance. Even the most ordinary Craigslist ad can turn out to be a trap you won't see coming. Some things don't leave you, no matter how far you run. And there are other things, like a sound you can't unhear, that stay with you even longer. Not every Craigslist deal is about what you see on the screen. Sometimes it's what you hear that makes you realize how fast things can go wrong. The day I tried to buy an Xbox, I was 17 and had finally saved up enough from mowing lawns and running errands. Gary's ad showed up that morning. Xbox One, 2 controllers, 5 games, all for the exact amount I had. The photos looked normal: console, controllers, a pile of games, all sitting on the passenger seat of a dark blue Honda Civic. Gary said he was moving out of state and needed it gone fast. It felt like I'd gotten lucky. My mom always told me to meet in public, somewhere with lights and cameras, so I picked the Walgreens parking lot. I sent Gary the address, showed up early, and made sure I had his number and all the texts saved, just in case. When he pulled up, I noticed the car first. A dark blue Civic, dent on the door, half-peeled bumper sticker that looked like it used to say something about a band. Gary looked like anyone's tired uncle. Thinning hair, glasses, faded red flannel, sneakers that had seen better days. He waved, gave a practiced smile, and held out the Xbox box. I checked the box, making sure the games were there, trying to keep my nerves in check. But Gary kept glancing at the back of his car, eyes darting every few seconds, I tried to ignore it. Then I heard it, a sound that didn't fit. At first it was muffled, but then it grew louder, sharp and desperate. It was a raw, desperate cry, like the kind that makes you want to drop everything and find that infant. My hands went cold. Gary flinched, his smile gone. He rushed to the back of his car, fumbling with his keys, and tried to laugh it off. "Just my nephew. He's sick. Hates car rides." He barely looked at me. His voice was shaky, like he was reading lines he'd practiced but didn't believe. The crying kept going. Every part of me wanted to run, but I forced myself to act calm. I pushed the Xbox box back at him and said I'd forgotten my wallet in my mom's car. Gary's face tightened. He tried to keep me there, voice suddenly sharp, but I just backed away and didn't stop until I was on my bike, pedaling hard out of the lot. When I got home, I checked the listing. It was gone. No more Xbox, no more Gary, and the phone number didn't work. I thought about calling the police, but what was I supposed to say? I never found out what was in the trunk. The not knowing is what stayed with me. It taught me that sometimes walking away is the only victory in an unseen trap. Other Craigslist deals don't even give you that much warning. Sometimes, you only realize how close you came to something worse when you find what someone else left behind. Renting out tools to strangers never felt risky before. I'd been in construction long enough to know the usual Craigslist crowd: guys fixing up a bathroom, someone remodeling a porch, people just trying to save a buck. That's why when David Chen emailed about my DeWalt drill set and circular saw, I didn't think twice. He offered double my normal rate for a 3-day rental, plus an extra security deposit. It was a lot more than anyone else had ever offered, but the paperwork checked out. He sent over a photo of his driver's license, gave me an address, even filled out a rental form. I figured maybe he was just in a hurry or had money to burn. I set the tools aside for him, expecting it to be done by the weekend. David showed up right on time, dressed like any other client. Clean jeans, pressed shirt, nothing flashy. He didn't look nervous, just businesslike. We made small talk about his supposed renovation, but he kept it vague. He handed over the cash and the deposit, and I handed him the tools. The plan was for him to bring them back on Friday. I didn't give it much thought until that Friday came and went, and my phone stayed silent. I called him, left messages, sent texts. Nothing. At first I thought maybe he'd just forgotten, but the longer it dragged on, the worse it felt. By Saturday morning, I was out of patience. I plugged the address he'd given me into my phone and drove over. It was a chilly Friday in November, and the house looked like nobody had set foot there in months. Windows clouded with dust, a foreclosure sign taped to the door, grass up to my knees. I walked around back and spotted a shed, half hidden in weeds. I almost turned around, but I needed those tools. The padlock on the shed was old and rusted, easy to snap free. I pushed open the door. Inside, my drill set and saw were stacked in the corner. I should have felt relieved, but then I saw the glove. It was a work glove, gray fabric, one side stained dark and sticky. It looked like blood, not the kind you get from a scraped knuckle. Next to it was a torn driver's license, the name Robert Martinez still visible. That wasn't the name I'd rented to. For a second, I just stood there, trying to make sense of it, thinking maybe it was a prank or a scam, something I could shrug off. But the blood and the license made it clear this was something else entirely. It was the moment I realized this wasn't about missing tools. It was about missing answers. I backed out fast, got in my truck, and sat there with my heart pounding. I didn't want to be part of whatever had happened in that shed. I called the police from a blocked number, told them what I'd found, and gave the address. I didn't leave my name. I drove home without the tools and tried not to think about what I'd seen. A few days later, I heard the police had found evidence linked to a missing person. They never contacted me, and I never went back for my tools. I stopped renting to strangers after that. Sometimes, you think you're just making a little extra money, but you end up tangled in something you never wanted to know about. It's strange how easy it is to miss the warning signs when you're focused on what you've lost. You start thinking about all the ways a simple ad can turn into something you never expected. Losing Whiskers didn't just make my apartment feel empty. It made every sound in the hallway seem like it might be him. I tried everything I could think of to get him back, even putting up a Craigslist ad with his best photos: the crooked whisker, the gray patch by his right eye, the white paw, the collar with my number. I offered a reward, thinking maybe money would get people to actually look. I didn't care about the risk at the time. All I wanted was Whiskers home. 2 days later, I got an email from someone named Eugene. His message was short, no greeting, just that he'd seen my cat near his RV. "I think you should come as soon as you can. I have him safe." I should have slowed down, but hope made me ignore the weirdness. When I asked for a phone number, he just sent directions. He told me to look for a faded blue mailbox marked 4472 on Route 87, then turn onto a dirt track. He said the cat didn't like strangers, and it would be better if I came alone. That made me pause. I read his message out loud to my brother, who didn't even let me finish before saying, "You're not going by yourself." We drove out together, my brother behind the wheel, me holding Whisker's old blanket in my lap. The RV lot was on the edge of town, weeds everywhere, broken glass at the entrance. There were 8 RVs, all abandoned, windows busted out, insulation hanging like spider webs. The place didn't look like anyone lived there, let alone kept lost cats safe. Eugene stood by the 3rd RV. He looked tired, clothes stained, and as we got closer, he shuffled toward us with a noticeable limp, and that's when my brother grabbed my sleeve. Eugene started waving, calling us over, saying Whiskers was inside because he kept running from all the noise. There was something off in his voice. Too urgent, too eager for us to just follow him inside. I tried to ask what Whiskers looked like. Eugene rattled off every detail stripped from my ad: gray patch, white paw, the collar, the phone number. He didn't add a single thing. My brother didn't wait for me to decide. He pulled me back, whispered, "We're leaving now." As we turned to go, Eugene's voice got louder, almost angry, yelling that we were wasting his time. He moved toward the car, arms waving. My brother locked the doors and started backing out. I kept my eyes on the rearview mirror the whole way out, my hands shaking. When we got home, I deleted that ad the moment I got inside. Never again. I kept thinking about how close I'd come to stepping into that RV lot alone, how desperate I'd been to believe a stranger. A few days later, Whiskers turned up behind my neighbor's shed, hungry but alive. The ad hadn't brought him home. All it did was show me how easy it is to let hope blind you to danger. I still keep my Craigslist ads short. No more personal details, no more promises. I don't go anywhere alone, not even for something that matters as much as a lost pet. It's strange how quickly trust can turn into fear, and how fast a simple errand can shift into something you never meant to walk into. The next time someone offers a deal that sounds too easy, I remember how fast things can go wrong, even when all you want is to bring something home. Shopping for a TV online isn't supposed to feel like a risk. I was just tired of squinting at my old screen and thought I'd finally found a deal that made sense. A 55-inch Samsung Smart TV for $300. I'd seen the same model listed everywhere else for twice as much, but the seller, Kevin Thompson, seemed normal. His replies were quick and polite, and he explained that he was moving out soon. The price was low, but he had a reason. I didn't want to miss out, so I agreed to meet. The pickup spot was the underground parking garage at his apartment. Kevin said the elevator was broken and he couldn't carry a big TV up 8 flights of stairs. It sounded like a hassle, but I figured it was just part of getting a good deal. The address checked out and the directions led me straight to the entrance. It was early afternoon, but once I pulled into the garage, the light faded fast. The place felt boxed in. Buzzing lights flickered overhead, and the air was thick and musty, with oil and dust caked into the concrete. I parked and spotted the TV box right away, leaning against a pillar where Kevin said it would be. The box looked untouched, still sealed, with the plastic handle looped out. I walked over and called out for Kevin, my voice bouncing off the walls and coming back at me. No answer. I tried again, but the only reply was the echo and the steady drip of water somewhere in the distance. I started to wonder if I'd been stood up or if I'd just gotten there early. Then I heard footsteps. They came from behind a car, slow, steady, getting louder. I turned and saw someone step out from behind an old Buick. He wore a dark hoodie and a scarf pulled up over his mouth. He didn't say anything, just held up a pair of thick zip ties in one hand. He didn't wave, didn't make a sound, just stared at me. He didn't say a word, just held up those thick ties. So I ran. I didn't think about the TV or the money. I just moved. I dodged behind a minivan and sprinted for the nearest blue exit sign, my shoes slipping on the concrete. My heart hammered in my ears. I didn't look back. I just kept running until I hit the sunlight outside. I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking, and tried to breathe. The whole thing was over in seconds, but it felt like I'd been down there for hours. When I got home, I tried to pull up Kevin's Craigslist ad. It was gone. The listing had disappeared. His number stopped working, and there was nothing left except the memory of that garage and the sound of those footsteps. I never reported it because I didn't even know what to say. There was no proof, no way to trace what happened. But I know what I saw, and I know how close I came to something I don't want to imagine. I don't do private garage meetups anymore, and you shouldn't either. There's always someone out there thinking up new ways to use an empty space and a fake name. Sometimes you think you're being careful, but desperation or a good deal makes you ignore the signs. And sometimes the real danger is waiting in a place that looks safe until you're already inside. Sometimes it's the simple jobs that catch you off guard. I needed cash, and Mitchell's ad looked like the easiest way to get it. Just a weekend of house sitting and feeding 2 cats, Pepper and Salt. $50 a day, free food, and a quiet place to study. I met Mitchell at a coffee shop near campus. He barely looked up from his cup, paid for his drink with coins, and slid a key and a sheet of instructions across the table. He told me his phone dropped calls sometimes, but that didn't sound strange for old houses. He didn't care about much except the cats, and he left in a hurry, like he had somewhere better to be. The house was in an old neighborhood, tucked behind a sagging fence. The porch light flickered, and the paint peeled in strips. Inside, the air felt stale and cold. Papers dust-coated the countertop, like no one had returned in weeks. There was a bowl on the floor, but no fur, no food, no trace of pepper or salt. The living room carpet was pressed flat in a wide trail, and a wall clock ticked, but the hands were stuck at 3:17. I texted Mitchell to ask where he kept the trash bags. No answer. I told myself he was just busy, or maybe the cell service really was that bad. But the longer I waited in that silent house, the more wrong it felt. That night, I tried to settle in the back bedroom, scrolling through my phone to pass the time. The house creaked, but then I heard footsteps, soft at first, then heavier, slow and steady. They came from above me. Mitchell had said the house was too old for an attic, but the sounds kept coming, measured and deliberate. Every time I tried to convince myself it was just the wind, the footsteps circled back, pausing right overhead. I got up and started searching for anything that made sense. In the hallway, behind a bookshelf, I found a patch of wall that looked too new. I pressed on it, and a crawl-sized door popped open. Through a crack, I saw a faint glow from a window tucked under the eaves, and a shape moved across it, a person shuffling, head down. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my hoodie, called 911, and ran outside to the curb, watching the house and hoping I was wrong. Police came with flashlights and spent an hour inside. They found nothing. No cats, no one in the crawl space, no sign of Mitchell. I asked if they knew who he was, but they just said squatters sometimes use empty houses. I tried calling Mitchell, but his number was dead by the next morning. The money didn't matter anymore. I left the key on the porch and walked away. Now I still run my hands over attic hatches, half expecting to find footprints. I don't take house-sitting jobs, no matter how easy the ad sounds. Some houses just feel empty, but you can't be sure what's hiding behind a locked door or a crawl space. It changes how you look at the things people offer online. Sometimes what you bring home, or let into your life, comes with more than you bargained for. There's a kind of risk that doesn't look like danger at first. I was just looking for a couch, something cheap, something that would make my new apartment feel less empty. The Craigslist ad made it seem easy. The photos showed a blue couch, nothing special, but it looked clean and better than what I had. I didn't pay much attention to the email address at first, mexicanpoppy666@hotmail.com. It should have been a warning, but I brushed it off. I figured maybe the guy just liked weird jokes. I sent a message, made an offer, and he replied almost instantly. He said he'd deliver the couch himself. He kept insisting on bringing it to my place, which made me uneasy. Most sellers want you to pick up heavy furniture, not drive it across town. I asked for his address instead. After a few messages back and forth, he finally gave it to me. I brought a friend. The house was small, set back on a quiet block, with cracked glass by the steps and a faded welcome mat. The couch wasn't what I expected. It was scuffed, with tears in the fabric big enough to slide my hand through. I pointed out the damage, trying to keep things casual, but the seller just shrugged. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, like he hadn't slept in days. When I told him I didn't want the couch, he stepped closer and put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "I'll give it to you for free if you give something to me." His voice was low, almost like he was daring me to ask what he meant. Every part of me went tense. I didn't say anything. I just turned and walked out, my friend right behind me. The seller didn't follow, but he watched us all the way to the car. I got in, locked the doors, and tried not to look back. I told myself it was over, until footsteps echoed on my porch that night. Heavy, slow, and too close. I froze, listening to someone rattle my front door. By the time I looked through the peephole, no one was there. Then I heard my backyard gate swing open, metal hitting wood. I dialed 911 and waited by the door, phone shaking in my hand. A minute later, the back door rattled. I yelled out that the police were coming, and the gate slammed again. After that, it went quiet. I didn't sleep at all. I never got that couch, but every creak reminds me of letting a stranger inside your door. Some things you try to buy come with more risk than you think, and sometimes the warning signs are there if you're willing to see them. The next time I see a deal that looks too good, I pay attention to every detail, especially the ones that don't make sense. And if you think a couch story is strange, Just wait until you hear what someone found in the back seat of a used car. Buying a used car off Craigslist isn't supposed to test your instincts for danger. You expect to deal with weird smells, maybe a seller who won't budge on price, but you don't expect to question what's waiting for you at the other end of a low-mileage deal. That's what I told myself when I found the ad for a 2003 Toyota Camry, 67,000 miles, no accidents, $3,500. The price was almost too good, but I figured maybe someone just needed to move fast. I wanted to believe I'd gotten lucky. The seller, Bob, lived about 10 miles away. He sounded normal on the phone, casual, not in a hurry. We agreed to meet at his place. He wanted to show the car at dusk, saying it was easier to see everything in the fading light. I didn't love the idea, but I needed a car and told myself it was fine. When I pulled up, Bob's house sat alone at the edge of a block, surrounded by dry grass and empty space. The garage door was open, but there was no Camry, just an old pickup truck with mud on the tires. I stood there for a while, waiting, feeling the weight of the quiet. I knocked on the door. Nothing. I called his phone and heard it ring inside the house. Still nothing. I started to get uneasy, but I didn't leave. I walked around to the side yard and looked through a window. The inside was dark, with a dining table and chairs that looked untouched for years. I saw a figure standing by the back door, not moving, just watching the yard. I thought it had to be Bob, but something about the way he stood there made me pause. I walked around to the backyard, and that's when everything changed. The figure I'd seen through the window wasn't Bob at all. It was a human-sized taxidermy mount, posed to look like someone standing and staring out the glass. I stared at it for a long moment, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. There was no sign of the Camry, no sign of anyone else. The phone was still ringing inside. The whole place felt wrong. I got in my car and left without looking back. Later, I thought about how close I'd come to walking into that house, just because I wanted a good deal. There was no way to know if Bob was even real, or if the ad was meant to draw someone out to that empty property. I never found out what the real story was, and I never saw that Camry listed again. Sometimes, the best thing you can do is trust the feeling that tells you to leave. You start to realize that not every Craigslist deal is about what you're buying. Sometimes it's about what you might lose if you don't listen to that uneasy feeling. And sometimes it only takes one small detail. A time, a place, a price that's just a little too low to make you question what you're really stepping into. I didn't think much about danger when I messaged someone about an iPhone 5 on Craigslist. I just wanted to upgrade from my old flip phone. I'd seen the same phone posted a dozen times, but this one stood out. $200, quick replies, the seller calling himself Marcus and promising the charger and box. It sounded easy enough. The only thing that made me hesitate was his suggestion to meet at a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot at 10 at night. My brother said to wait until morning, but I didn't want to lose the deal. I said yes. We pulled into the lot, which sat right on the edge of a park, the lights buzzing overhead but not really making things feel safer. Marcus texted, "Bring cash. I need to go fast." That should have been a red flag, but I told myself it was just nerves. He was late. Each car that pulled in made me tense up. Then a black Honda Civic rolled up. Two guys got out, both in hoodies, one taller than the other. Marcus asked if I had the money. I held out the cash, hoping to just get this over with. Suddenly, the price jumped. He said, "Actually, I need $250. The way he said it, leaning in, his friend moving closer, made it clear there was no room to argue. I handed over the money, $250 in crumpled bills. They gave me the phone, but the other guy just stared, face blank. We got back in the car. I tried to turn on the phone, but nothing happened. My brother nudged me and said the Civic was following us. We drove a few blocks, turned at random, but the headlights stuck close behind. I started sweating. My brother whispered, "Lose them." I took a sharp turn, sped through a yellow light, then ran a red. The Civic kept up, almost clipping a mailbox, but I finally managed to double back through a strip mall, and we watched them shoot past, tires squealing. My hands were shaking the whole way home. At home, I tried to convince myself it was over. But when I turned on the living room light, I saw the Civic parked across the street, headlights pointed at our house. My dad heard us come in and asked what was wrong, but before I could explain, there was a loud knock at the door. One of the guys shouted that they had a gun and would shoot the lock off. My dad grabbed a baseball bat and stood by the door. Then a silenced shot blasted through the wood. One round grazed the door just inches from his head. I dropped to the floor and stayed there, heart pounding. The police showed up fast. My friend's dad is a cop and he brought backup. They arrested both guys from the Civic. There was a bullet hole in the door and the phone I'd bought, shattered on the table. An officer told me, "This happens all the time. Craigslist ads just pull people in to rob or worse." He didn't have to say more. I still haven't touched Craigslist because some deals cost far more than you bargained for. It doesn't really matter if you're just after a couch, a cat, or a quick flip on an old phone. Some Craigslist stories stick with you long after you close the app. Trusting a stranger to perform a medical procedure in their kitchen or facing down a silent threat in a dark parking garage. Those are the moments that make you rethink how far you'll go for a deal. Even when it feels harmless, every click can be a gamble, so think twice before you reply. There are always stories that never make it online, the ones that end quietly or never get told at all. If you've ever had a Craigslist scare, share it below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss these real-world warnings.